December 31st, 1965, Miami, Florida. Coach Bryant and his 8-1-1 Alabama team sit down to their New Year's Eve dinner ranked 4th in the country. The chatter at the table was, how could the Tide win its second consecutive national championship? 3 events would have to happen. First, in the Cotton Bowl, unranked and 8-3 LSU must find a way to upset a number 2 ranked Arkansas team that had not lost a game in over 2 years. Then, in the Rose Bowl, twice beaten UCLA must defeat Michigan State, college football's top-ranked team, a daunting task considering the Spartans beat the Bruins by 10 in the season opener. And finally, in the last bowl game of the day, the Orange Bowl, Alabama would have to beat third-ranked and undefeated Nebraska. The 3 events are highly unlikely taken separately and barely inside the realm of possibility taken together. But 24 hours, 2 bowl games, and a Crimson Classic would make a world of difference. The 1966 Orange Bowl, number 3 Nebraska versus number 4 Alabama. Hello everybody, I'm Gary Harris. Welcome to Crimson Classics. Before we examine this bowl matchup between 2 tradition-laden programs, let's first take a look at the amazing circumstances that led up to that football game. It all starts with the Associated Press college football poll. Before the 1965 season, the AP had never taken a vote after the bowl games. Why change after 30 years? Well, it involved the 1964 Crimson Tide and the 1965 Orange Bowl game versus Texas. The AP and UPI poll voted Alabama number 1 at the end of the regular season. When the Tide lost to Texas in the 31st annual Orange Bowl, the AP editors, under pressure, decided for the 1965 season they would wait until after the bowl games to take the final poll, leaving no doubt for 1965.
Well, I think there had to be. And, because here was this Alabama team that had won all 10 games. And really, if one of the things that made 65 so interesting and so much fun to write about was that they changed the rule in 65 because of Alabama's loss to Texas in the Orange Bowl. And said, well, we ought to really do this after the bowl games. And so they changed the rule in 65, which of course led to Alabama winning the national championship despite a loss and a tie. And so I guess you could say that, Alabama won even when it lost.
Bryant's Tide had compiled a 48-5-2 record over the first half of the 1960s. They had won a crown in 61 and 64 and was close in 1962. The players started the 65 season with high expectations.
No, we talked about it. We didn't talk as much about winning the Southeastern Conference as we did about winning the national championship. Because we knew if you won the national championship, you won the conference. And our approach to the whole thing, from spring training to the gym classes to schoolwork to going to class when you're supposed to, through all the discipline that you had to go through, was for one reason alone. That was to win the national title. And that was our approach to everything that we did. I know it was his approach to it because some of the things that he asked us to do, he wouldn't ask us to do if he didn't think we was going to be national champions one day.
The coaches, though, were a little less sure.
65 was sort of a transitional year, I think we depended on Namath quite a bit, and Namath graduated, and we lost some good players, and so 65, we were a little bit unsure of ourselves when we went in, and we kind of stumbled around early in the season, but like up at Athens. It just seemed like it was not a year that was going to end or begin well, and we were hoping it'd end well.
The preseason poll announces the start of the 1965 season with Nebraska number 1, Texas number 2, Notre Dame number 3, Michigan number 4, and Alabama number 5. But Bama drops out of the poll the first week of the season when Georgia beats the Crimson Tide on a questionable play.
It was hot. I know that. It was hot. It was a hard fought game. You know, we gave back about as much as we took. The play that they beat us on, the flea flicker, we can rehash that, you know, all the time. Film doesn't lie. Guy sitting on his knees with the ball, holding it like that before he threw it back. Anyways, that wasn't a thing, you know. Coach Bryant's idea on win or loss was just, it was a very small margin of error. And his philosophy was, it never should have come to that. That play should have never, it should have never made any difference whether that guy caught it, flipped it back, whatever. If we had been doing what we were supposed to have been doing, we would have beaten them anyways. Did not make any difference.
Guy caught a pass with his knees, both of them on the ground, and then he lateraled it off, and they ran for a touchdown. We got beat 18-17, and you know, it was a legal play because in college, when a man knees are on the ground, that's the end of play. But we lost it. But Coach Bryant, he's great in so many ways. He never dwelled on that. Moved on and said we got beat by a play that we shouldn't have got beat by, but that's the way it was.
Well, it's just one play pretty much describes the game, you know, that we lost there. And Pat Hodgson's knee was definitely on the ground. And I used to tease him about that because he worked for me. He was my receiver coach in New York. And so I know Pat real well, but I used to tease him about that all the time. I said, anybody can catch the ball with a knee on the ground. But that was pretty much the ball game, that one play.
With the devastating loss to Georgia to start the 1965 season, would the team have a letdown? Would Coach Bryant let them quit?
No way. No way. It was just the way Coach Bryant went about things and talking to us in meetings. There was never in my 3 years, 64, 5, and 6, there was never a time that you even got a clue there was going to be a letdown. I mean, how do you spell that? You know what I'm saying? It just don't exist. You know, failure don't exist. It's just the way, that's a big credit to him. That's the way he prepared his teams. That's the way he prepared individuals, you know. And that was a great attribute of his. I think it was the greatest.
When we come back, a quarterback steps out from under the bright lights of Broadway. Sometimes Alabama fans tend to forget the quarterback sandwiched in between Broadway Joe and the Snake, Cleveland, Tennessee's own Steve Sloan. No one would forget his name after the 65 Ole Miss game in Oxford. The Rebels had Bama by 6 after a great defensive stand by the Crimson Tide with 7:46 left in the game. Steve Sloan leads the offense from its own 11, 89 yards downfield for the winning touchdown.
Steve was smart, had a good arm on him, but he was smart. He called the right play at the right time. Now, different from philosophy, I guess, on quarterbacks and coaches now. Just about all the plays get sent in from the sideline. Now, trains of thought on that. It relieves the quarterback having to think what it's going to call next. Where he can get it, now he has an option when he gets to the line of scrimmage, he can change the play if he sees some things on defense that they didn't see the last time or something like that. Steve called all the plays. He had them written on an armband and things like that. But he knew. See, we'd been over this stuff so many times in practice that it was automatic. There was no question as to what somebody was supposed to do based on what was called in the hole, because we had practiced it and practiced it and practiced. That's the reason it was so hard to play against our defense, because they knew our offense and they knew what we were going to run and all this kind of stuff. And so he would make the calls, and he made them, and his calls were excellent, excellent. And when Coach Bryant wanted to send in a play or something like that, it's just something maybe he saw on the sideline we maybe didn't see. But Steve made all the calls.
Sloan came along when Joe was here, and that made it kind of tough on Steve. But Steve was a very accurate passer, low percentage interception type thrower, very, very smart guy, and he was a mentally tough guy. I remember when he was a sophomore and Joe was disciplined and couldn't play against Ole Miss in the Sugar Bowl. He came in, played the whole game, played within himself. We had to kick 4 field goals to win it, 12-7, but we won it, and he only made one mistake the whole game. He ran the wrong way on an option, and that was the only mistake he made.
Meanwhile, the national polls were shifting. Without losing a game, Nebraska drops to third, while Notre Dame moves to the top. Then it's Texas's turn at number 1. The following week, it's Arkansas leading the AP poll. After the Hogs' turn at number 1, it's preseason unranked Michigan State moving into the top spot. On the third Saturday in October, Alabama at 3-1 and unranked is tied with a 3-0-1 Vols at Legion Field. With seconds left in the game and Bama driving,
it was kind of a mix-up. There was a penalty that was called, and it was called on us. And what happened was, we thought that they had accepted the penalty. I say we, I'm not saying that who it was all of us. That we thought they accepted the penalty, but what they did is decline the penalty, so it made it 4th down instead of being 3rd down. And Kenny Stabler went in. I can't remember, Steve got shook up or something on a play before, but anyhow, he went in thinking it was 3rd down. And I may be a little fuzzy on this, but I still think that somewhere, either on the scoreboard or on the down marker, it showed 3rd down. But I wouldn't swear that'd be true. We're going 40 years back now. But Kenny threw the ball out of bounds. We were within field goal range, and he threw the ball out of bounds to stop the clock, and what happened was it was 4th down, and the game ended in a 7-7 tie.
At 3-1-1, it looked as if the Tide didn't have a ghost of a chance for the national title, but Halloween would come a day early for Bama, and it would definitely be a treat instead of a trick for the Crimson Tide. The Tide starts the last Saturday in October ranked number 10. Bama struggles with the Bulldogs of Mississippi State, but pulls out the win. 3 of the teams ahead of Alabama in the polls aren't as lucky or good. They lose. The Tide jumps 5 spots in the next poll, then comes an easy 31-7 win over LSU in Baton Rouge. The following week, a 35-14 whipping of the South Carolina Gamecocks. And the Tide ends the regular season with a 30-3 smashing of Auburn. The easy victory over the Tigers convinces the pollsters that Alabama is good enough to move past UCLA for the number 4 spot. So at 8-1-1, ranked number 4, and a trip to the Cotton Bowl. Yep, that's right. The seniors, if they had had their way, the team would have been Dallas bound.
Because he called the seniors in at the end of the season and says, okay, we're going to do a bowl. Now, which bowl would you guys like to go to? And we said the Cotton Bowl. And he said, why? And we said, well, we'd been to the Sugar Bowl. I went as a sophomore, played against Ole Miss. We've gone to the Orange Bowl, and we played Texas last year. And we'd just like to go to the Cotton Bowl. And in his way of putting things, he said, no. Well, let me explain to you what could happen, and then he put out the scenario of what could happen. He said, you'll end up playing for national championship against Nebraska in the Orange Bowl if you go there. So we said, okay, we'll go to the Orange Bowl. And that stuff about seniors chose the game to go to, nah.
Lace up those bowling shoes, folks, because it's time to see if the Tide can roll a New Year's Day strike when Crimson Classics continues. Remember, folks, if this were 1964, the polls would be final, with Michigan State as the national champion and Alabama a humble number 4. But this year, things are different. Nothing is final until the bowl games are complete. First up, the Cotton Bowl, Arkansas versus unranked LSU. A great defensive game with the Tigers surprising the Hogs 14-7. That's one down. Next, it's the Rose Bowl. Top-ranked Michigan State versus number 5 UCLA. The Bruins score 2 touchdowns in the first half and hold on for a 14-12 victory. 2 down, 1 to go. So only one left, the Orange Bowl. The Crimson Tide matched against the only other unbeaten team, the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Bob Devaney had done at Nebraska what Coach Bryant was doing at Alabama, building a powerhouse. The Cornhuskers had been to 4 consecutive bowls and had only lost 2 out of the last 30 games. And the 1965 version of the Big Red may have been the best yet.
Well, the biggest thing I remember the coaches kind of talking around was that they were a bigger team, a lot bigger team than us. I want to say they outweighed us 25, 26, 27 pounds a player.
We knew they were a good football team. We knew they were well coached. We knew that they were a lot bigger than we were. And we had to prepare ourselves, for that task at hand.
The Nebraska game in '65, because they had a great football team. This was one of the finest football teams that I ever got to play against. And big, strong guys. The guy that I played against that night was, I never will forget him, his name was Walt Barnes, 6'5", 275 pound, first round draft choice, Washington Redskins. And I mean, this guy was and all down the line, they were just big and strong.
They were a very physical team, and like a Big 8 team or a Big 10 team, they were much bigger than we were. They had talented players, good coaching staff. Bob Devaney was still coaching at that time. And I think Coach Bryant, you could tell the way he was kind of preparing us and talking about it, he was a little unsure whether we could run against them because they were so big. And they had good speed too. But he thought that maybe we're going to have to throw the ball a lot more against them. He never came right out and say that we have to throw the ball to win, because that was not Coach Bryant's style. He said, we got to do this, we got to run, we got to pass, and he said, but we got to keep them off balance.
The Cornhuskers were ready, and Coach Bryant had the Tide fired up.
You remember the year before that, we go to the Orange Bowl down there and play Texas and got beat. Well, that year, Coach Bryant, for some reason, let off on the discipline just a little bit. Not a whole lot, you understand. Not as far as players were concerned. The players still had to do what they were supposed to do. And he was going to see that. Very organized coach. But he allowed them to take wives and people like that on a trip. And we went down there, and we probably enjoyed ourselves a little too much. We weren't really as focused as we should have been. But to answer your question about the next year, it was all business. There wasn't any, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. He took the squad down there and the coaches and whoever was involved with that football team, and our practices were as hard as they were in spring. we practiced. It was physical. We got after one another, and we had total concentration on what we were going to try to do. You know, we won national championships because of what we did before we even got to the game that decided it. And I don't think there was a person on that squad that didn't think about, I know there's 9 seniors didn't think about the spring trainings, the gym classes, the going to classes when you didn't want to, and not going over there and taking care of little small injuries like you were supposed to, and things of this nature. And all of that played a major part in winning a ball game that maybe we shouldn't have, but they didn't tell us that.
The stage is set. It's 7 p.m. on NBC in living color. Alabama kicks off to Nebraska's Frank Solich, who has a nice 38-yard return for the Cornhuskers. 1st and 10 from the Nebraska 42. Quarterback Fred Duda pitches to Ron Kirkland for 12 yards and a first down. Tim Bates on the tackle for Alabama. Nebraska into Alabama territory. Fred Duda hands to halfback Harry Wilson, who fumbles. Crossville native Richard Cole recovers for the Crimson Tide. Alabama on offense. Senior Steve Sloan to Jerry Duncan for 7 yards. Yes, folks, that's offensive lineman Jerry Duncan making the catch. Let's listen as Jerry talks about the play.
Well, I can remember the first play of the game was a tackle-eligible play, and I remember really getting on Sloan about it after the game because he knew about it, Coach Bryant knew about it, and I told him, I said, why didn't you let me know? And he said, I was afraid you wouldn't come out of the huddle.
Sloan hands to Bowman for 5 yards and a first down. Bowman was the SEC's leading rusher in 1965. The action is only beginning to heat up in the Sunshine State when Crimson Classics continues. Bama takes to the air as we return to the 1966 Orange Bowl. On Nebraska's side of the gridiron, it's another pass to the tackle. Listen as Jerry and Ray Perkins reminisce about Coach Bryant and the tackle-eligible play.
We had the tackle-eligible in, and we'd gotten beat over in Athens and didn't get to run it. And we didn't run it against Tulane, I think was the next game, and then we played Ole Miss. And Coach Bryant was in a pretty foul mood because, you know, we'd already lost to Georgia and we hadn't played well against Tulane. And we come out and we get immediately behind Ole Miss 9-0, and that's what it was at the half. The score was 16-10 late in the third quarter, and we got the ball on the 12-yard line because we ended up going 88 yards. And in that drive, it was like 6 minutes to go in the game, and in that drive we went on fourth down twice and made it, and we had a 3rd and 14 about our 40-yard line, and Coach Bryant sent in the tackle-eligible play, and we're up there, you know, right in front of the Ole Miss bench, and the only person in the whole stadium or on either team that knew we were going to run it was Johnny Vault. I was lined up on the Ole Miss sideline. I could hear Johnny Vault coming down the sideline hollering, tackle eligible, tackle eligible. And about that time, you know, we snapped the ball, and Sloan shot it to me we picked up about 17 yards and a first down, and then went on to, you know, it was actually the drive that won the game. And we ended up winning 17-16.
Here, there's Jerry Duncan, our pass catching tackle, and after this game, they passed a rule that you couldn't have. They took tackle eligible out of the game because of this game and because of Jerry Duncan.
From Nebraska's 32, Sloan hands to Bowman for a 7-yard gain. Alabama moves it down to the Nebraska 21. Steve Sloan to Ray Perkins. Touchdown, Alabama.
Steve Sloan had an outstanding game. I mean, just outstanding. He just showed great leadership and threw the ball a lot more times than he ever thought we might.
Alabama 7, Nebraska nothing. Nebraska begins its drive at its own 35. Kirkland and Solich run for first downs for the Cornhuskers. Nebraska moves the ball to Alabama 16, but the Bama defense makes a stand, and with 4th and 3, Nebraska attempts a 28-yard field goal. No good. Alabama's football. After a 3-yard gain, it's 2nd and 7. Steve Sloan back to pass, hits Dennis Homan for 31 yards and a big Alabama first down. Steve Sloan completed an SEC-leading 66% of his passes in 1965, and that's why Coach Bryant called him the most accurate forward passer he ever coached. Sloan finds Montgomery native Wayne Cook for 14 yards and another Alabama first down. From the Nebraska 30, the senior Sloan options to Les Kelly for 10 yards. Alabama's 3rd first down of the drive.
He called me in his office when I was a senior, and it was right before we had gotten into the fall practice of things. And he said, I want to talk to you. Now, Terry Jones said he sat in that little chair, you know, and I think personally Coach Bryant cut the legs off that chair to make it real small so you had to look up at him because he towered above that desk like that, see, and so we'd sit and slink down in that chair and he'd say, I want to tell you something. Well, when he said that, I started talking. And I talked for about 5 or 10 minutes, telling him what we were doing. Now, we were the seniors, and there were but 9 of us. And we had a meeting call that night, and we didn't think people were having a winning attitude, and we were going to talk to the younger players, and tell them that we're going to pick up, we're going to change some things, and these are some things we're going to have to do in order to be successful this year. And if you don't have that right kind of mental attitude, then we don't want you on this football team. We want you to go home. We want you to get out here and leave because you're not going to do us any good. Well, when I got through with my spiel of talking and being nervous and scared and all that kind of stuff, and I shut up and I said, and he looked at me and he smiled. And he said, well, that's exactly what I was going to tell you. So I said, well, I'm glad. I didn't say it. I thought it, that I'm glad I said it first. So maybe it's taken some of the edge off this thing. And he told me to get up and get out of his office, and I was more than glad to do that.
Now here's Steve Bowman showing the team leadership as he runs for 6 yards. Les Kelly darts through the right side for a 9-yard gain. 1st and goal, but Nebraska's defense stiffened. Alabama missed a field goal. Nebraska's football. As the first quarter ends, quarterback Fred Duda runs a draw off the middle for 9 yards and a first down. Jackie Sherrill makes the tackle. On 2nd and 9, Duda pitches to Frank Solich for 12 yards and a first down. If the name Frank Solich sounds familiar, it should. He took over the Nebraska head coaching duties after Tom Osborne retired in 1997. Nebraska draws first blood in the second quarter with his 33-yard touchdown pass from quarterback Bob Churchtick to Tony Jeter. Point after touchdown is good, and Nebraska has tied the football game, 7-7 the score. After forcing Bama into a 4th down and with the momentum swinging towards Nebraska, the Cornhuskers make a big mistake, roughing the punter. First down, Alabama. Les Kelly takes the handoff and rumbles for 5 yards, setting up a 3rd and 2. Steve Sloan finds Ray Perkins for 22 yards and an Alabama first down. Ray was drafted by the NFL's Baltimore Colts. After an Alabama penalty, it's 1st and 25, but gritty, gutty Jerry Duncan comes through again on the tackle-eligible play, breaking a tackle for 8 yards.
Here's a screen pass to the tackle again, and you can see I almost got my head torn off, but we were able to gain a few yards. Here's Sloan coming back. You can see that protection. That's a great pass right there. That's going to be Ray Perkins at the other end. What a catch. Look at that. That's the way they draw it up on the blackboard.
All tied up, but not for long. When we come back, it's the Steve Sloan and Ray Perkins Show. Steve Sloan was a terrific college quarterback. In fact, Sloan broke 13 Alabama passing records during the 1965 season. Now let's watch as he breaks a few more. From the Nebraska 12-yard line, it's Steve Bowman for an 8-yard pickup. From the I formation, Sloan hands to Les Kelly for 4 yards and an Alabama touchdown. The point after touchdown is good, and the Crimson Tide goes back out on top 14-7. Let's watch that exciting play again. Alabama's drive went 91 yards in 13 plays. The Crimson Tide getting it done on the ground. The Cornhuskers have the ball now on their own 33. Solich for 4 yards. Sherrill and Somerville on the tackle for Alabama. On 2nd and 6, Churchick hands to Wilson for 5 yards off left tackle. With just under 7 minutes left in the second quarter, it's 3rd and 1 for the Cornhuskers. Churchick hands to Wilson, but the Bama defense stuffs him for a loss of 1. Coach Bryant often said offense sells tickets, but defense wins football games. Nebraska's forced to punt, and John Mosley will take the punt, go left, come back right for a nice return. However, the return was nullified by a clipping penalty on Alabama. Following the penalty, Alabama is backed up. From his own end zone, Sloan finds Perkins for 28 yards and a first down. That's what made Coach Bryant such a terrific coach. He was not afraid to take a chance throwing the ball out of his own end zone.
Going into this game, Steve Sloan was our quarterback, and of course this was his senior year, and he was coming off of a great year, but because of Nebraska being as big and strong on both sides of the ball, they had a fantastic running game, as you can see if you watch this film. And so the other thing that Coach Bryant did in Tuscaloosa, we kind of changed our attack. We were a lot of an option-oriented. Sloan was not a good option quarterback, but he could stumble for more yards than anybody I've ever seen. And once he turned the corner, he wouldn't run, he'd just stumble along, but he'd get you the first down. But anyway, Coach Bryant went to more of a attack type offense. I mean, I remember him telling us in the dressing room before the game, look, we're gonna throw the ball tonight from wherever we have the ball. If we're in our own end zone, we're gonna throw the ball. We're gonna onside kick, and the whole philosophy of the game was to keep the ball away from Nebraska, because anybody that's ever seen the film knows that just about every time they got the football, they scored.
Sloan and Perkins hook up again for a much shorter gain, 3 yards for Alabama. On 2nd and 7, Sloan hits Muscle Show's favorite son, Dennis Homan, for 6 yards. And on 3rd down, Frank Canterbury bulls his way for the first down. Now Sloan, doing his best Harry Gilmer impersonation, connects with Wayne Cook for 7 yards. Now in Nebraska territory, Sloan finds Cook again, 12 yards, first down, Alabama. Homan had great speed, and he beats his man to the end zone, but the Cornhuskers DB, instead of giving up 6, tackles him. Pass interference, Nebraska. From 11 yards out, Sloan has Homan again in the end zone, but this time no pass interference, just a great play by Nebraska's Ted Vactor. On 2nd down, Sloan scrambles to his right and finds Perkins in the end zone. Touchdown for Perkins and Alabama. Point after touchdown is good. Alabama extends its lead to 21-7 with 1:42 left in the half. Up by 14 with 1:42 left, most coaches would kick it deep and play defense. But Coach Bryant is not most coaches. Onside kick, Alabama recovers. Alabama football again. Coach Bryant pulling out all stops to win a big football game.
The onside kicks, they were a surprise to me. I had no idea, I was glad to see it, but I didn't know it was coming. And when it worked, like both of them did, it was perfect. And I was ready to go with him. Yes, sir. But I had no idea they were coming. We felt like it would be an offensive game. We thought that our defense was going to be strong enough to keep them out of the end zone, to keep them out of scoring position enough. And then whenever we got an opportunity to go and to put the ball in the end zone, that's exactly what we were going to do. Now, we didn't fail too many times at that. But we knew that that to win this football game, we were going to have to put points on the board. We couldn't go in there and just do 14 points, 17 points, something like that. We had to rattle its scoreboard.
Bama was intent on lighting up the Orange Bowl scoreboard. From the Nebraska 46, Perkins again for 36 yards on the post route, first down Alabama. Sloan looks for Perkins again and finds him, although it's only a gain of 1 yard. Second and goal from the Nebraska 9. Sloan overshoots Kelly on the flare pass. On third down, Steve moves to his left and finds, you guessed it, Ray Perkins, pickup of 8 yards, but still short of the end zone. So with 34 seconds left, Coach Bryant calls on David Ray, who boots an 18-yard field goal. Alabama increases its lead to 24-7. The Tide is on a roll, and Coach Bryant wants more. With 34 clicks left, kick it deep, no way. Alabama tries another onside kick, and once again, the Crimson Tide is successful. Alabama football. The first half ends with Steve Sloan still slinging the cowhide. Sloan is 17 of 26 for 271 yards. Ray Perkins has 9 catches for 166 yards, and that's just the first half. Alabama 24, Nebraska 7. The second half when we come back to Crimson Classics. Three onside kicks, up by 17 points, 30 minutes to go. Alabama starts the second half with the ball after a nice catch by Les Kelly for a first down. The Cornhuskers defense holds and forces the Tide to punt. The Cornhuskers, Ben Gregory bulls his way for 5 yards. Then Churchick hits White for 12 yards and a Cornhusker first down. Bob Devaney's team never gives up. Nebraska moves into Alabama territory. Churchick finds Gregory. A strike and a race to the goal line. Gregory wins it, 48 yards, touchdown Nebraska. Even with the failed 2-point conversion, the Cornhuskers are back within 11. Give Nebraska some credit, folks. Just like Alabama, the Cornhuskers are a championship football team. And Nebraska has come back to make it a ball game, so the pressure is back on Alabama's offense. But here comes the Tide. Les Kelly weaving his way through the white jerseys for 25 yards and a huge first down deep in Nebraska territory. Leslie Les Kelly is a winner. Not only did he play on a national championship team at Alabama, he also starred on a state championship high school team in 1962 at Coleman. Up by 11, Coach Bryant is chewing up the clock. Canterbury for 6 yards off right tackle. Now it's Canterbury again, 7 yards, first and goal, Alabama. And from the 2, Steve Bowman punches it in, and Alabama decides to go for 2. On the 2-point attempt, it's Sloan finding Perkins again in the end zone. Alabama leads it 32-13. The Tide has answered the challenge.
Whenever I scored, it was always exciting because I didn't do it very often. So, you know, whenever I did, I think the angels in heaven rejoiced. To score yourself, to really get in there, it's really, really a rush. It's really a head rush. And it's something that you did along with the help of your teammates that they can't take away from you.
The good news is Alabama increases its lead. The bad news is the Tide is forced to kick off. That means the always dangerous Frank Solich is on the other end of the football, and once again he shows his speed, getting to the outside and bringing it back for 70-plus yards on the return. Unfortunately for the Cornhuskers, Gregory fumbles on the first play, and Alabama's Tim Bates recovers. Alabama fails to gain a first down, though, so Nebraska has the football back. From the Tide 45, Churchick connects with Winters for 20 yards and a first down. Then from the 25, Churchick finds Freeman White for 15 yards, first and goal, Nebraska. As the third quarter ends, Charles Winters, who Nebraska fans call Choo Choo, goes for 5 yards off right tackle. On the first play of the fourth quarter, Churchick scores, Alabama 32, Nebraska 20. With the clock moving, 3rd and 7 for Alabama. Sloan, ever the cool customer, finds Bowman for 21 yards and a big Alabama first down. Bama continues to move down the field. From the Nebraska 22, it's Steve Bowman, 1st and goal. Let's take a look at that play again. And from the 2, Bowman caps off the drive, his 2nd touchdown of the game. Point after touchdown is good. Alabama leads 39-20. Up by 19, all Alabama has to do is run out the clock and not let Nebraska score quickly. But the Cornhuskers keep the pressure on the Alabama defense. Churchick rolls to his left and finds Tony Jeters. Watch the catch. Jeters bobbles but hangs on. Touchdown, Nebraska. The Cornhuskers obviously will go for 2. Alabama plays good defense, but on the deflection, the 2-point conversion is good. Alabama 39, Nebraska 28. Alabama's still up by 11, though, and all the Tide has to do to win the football game is secure the football. Coach Bryant's teams always did that well. And as the clock ticks down and hits 0, Alabama wins it 39-28. 2 national championships in a row, 3 in 5 years. Amazing. So amazing, in fact, that it's only been done 4 times. Coach Bryant takes another victory ride.
I said this was a season of destiny. It started out badly for us, but we righted the ship. We played the last bowl game of the day. We were ranked 4th. First was Michigan State. Second was Arkansas. Third was Nebraska, and we were ranked 4th. Well, lo and behold, they play the Rose Bowl, and UCLA beats Michigan State. LSU beats Arkansas. So now we're getting ready to go to the stadium, and we said, boy, you know, this is a big game. That if we beat Nebraska, then we would be ranked number 1, because all the teams ahead of us had lost the game. So we went in and we ended up beating Nebraska 39-28 in a heck of a football game. We just scored and kept scoring, recovered onside kicks, recovered fumbles. We did everything that game. And I still got one of these, which is a 1965 national championship that I still wear to this day. This is almost 40 years old. And I'm very proud of it.
That team was so involved from when we found out about, you know, we're going to play a great Nebraska team, and then of course we didn't have any idea that we were going to be playing for the national championship. But it's one of those things, you know, Coach Bryant knew all that because you know you were taught from day one, you know, you always expect the unexpected. Well, you know, it wasn't anything written in stone that those other teams, you know, wasn't going to get beat or wasn't going to get upset. So he had us so fine-tuned for that game. I think it may be the most prepared Alabama team I've ever seen. Now, some people say, well, the '67 Sugar Bowl was the best team, or the '66 team. Matter of fact, I saw in a book one time where Coach Bryant said that '66 team was a great team, and it was a great team. But I'll always remember the Nebraska-Alabama game in the Orange Bowl that we played for the national championship because, you know, it was just so special.
Alabama, in many ways, became the standard for a top-flight college football program, for really being a power and for being a team that won. And what was going on in the '60s was, you know, was just tremendous. And I remember that it seems like the first year Coach Bryant was here that, you know, Alabama was everybody's homecoming opponent. And he said the first thing he wanted to do, he said, I want to get us where, you know, where nobody wants to play us for homecoming. And, but Alabama was, at that time, if Alabama wasn't it, Alabama was as close to it as anybody else.
Alabama was certainly the team of the 1960s with national championships in 1961, 64, and 65. That's 3 in 5 years. Could Alabama make it 3 national championships in a row? We'll answer that question on another edition of Crimson Classics. For the Bryant Museum, I'm Gary Harris.
To purchase a DVD of this program, visit the Paul W. Bryant Museum at www.bryant.ua.edu or call 1-866-772-BEAR.